My name is James Crawford, and I'm 64 years old. If you're watching this right now, I need you to take a deep breath, because what I'm about to share with you happened in my own home, to my own father, by someone I invited through my front door and trusted with his life. This is a story about betrayal that came dressed in scrubs and a kind smile. This is about my father, the man who raised me to believe in the goodness of people, and the caregiver who exploited that trust in the worst possible way. I'm a retired police sergeant from Austin, Texas. Spent 35 years with the Austin PD, worked everything from patrol to detective work in the fraud division. You'd think after all those years seeing the worst of humanity, I'd be better at spotting a predator. You'd be wrong. I retired 3 years ago, planned to spend my days fishing at Lake Travis, working on my vintage Mustang in the garage, maybe traveling with my wife Karen. We'd been married 38 years, raised one son, Marcus, who works as an engineer in Singapore now. Good kid. Visits once a year, if we're lucky. My father, Robert Crawford, is 89 years old. He's a Korean War veteran, tough as nails his whole life, the kind of man who never complained about anything. After my mother passed away 5 years ago from a heart attack, we brought Dad to live with us. He had the little house he and Mom had lived in for 50 years in Round Rock, but he couldn't manage alone anymore. At first, he did fine. Sure, he moved slower, forgot things here and there, but he was still Dad, still told his war stories, still did the crossword every morning, still insisted on making his own breakfast. But this past year, things changed. Dad turned 89 inches March, and it was like something shifted overnight. He started having trouble getting around. His knees, bad from decades of construction work, finally gave him real trouble. Then in June, he had a minor stroke. Nothing catastrophic, thank God. But it left his left side weak. He needed a walker, needed help bathing, needed someone to make sure he took his medications on time. 7 different pills 3 times a day. Karen and I tried to handle it ourselves. She's 62, still works part-time as a librarian at the Central Branch, 3 days a week. I'm home all the time, so I figured I'd manage. And I did, for about 2 months. But it was harder than I expected. Dad needed help getting to the bathroom in the middle of the night. He'd get confused sometimes, try to walk without his walker. Nearly fell twice. I wasn't sleeping. Karen wasn't sleeping. We were both exhausted. One morning in late August, Karen and I were sitting at the kitchen table. She was on her second cup of coffee, looking tired. Dark circles under her eyes. I probably looked worse. "James," she said, putting down her cup, "we need to talk about getting help with your father." I knew what she meant, but I didn't want to hear it. "I can handle it." "No, you can't," she said gently. "Neither of us can. Not like this. We need a professional caregiver, someone who knows what they're doing. Your father deserves that. And we deserve to not run ourselves into the ground." I sat there for a long time, staring at my coffee. She was right. Of course she was right. But admitting I couldn't take care of my own father felt like failure. "Okay," I finally said. "Let's look into it." We spent the next week researching home health agencies, calling around, getting recommendations from Dad's doctor. We finally settled on a place called Compassionate Care Home Health. They had good reviews, were licensed and bonded, did background checks on all their caregivers. The director, a woman named Mrs. Patterson, came to our house for an assessment. She was professional, kind, asked all the right questions about Dad's needs. 3 days later, she called. "Mr. Crawford, I have the perfect person for your father. Her name is Ashley Martinez. She's 32, has 8 years of experience in elder care, excellent references, CPR certified, the whole package. She can start Monday if that works for you." Monday. That was 4 days away. We set it up. Ashley arrived that Monday morning at 8 a.m. sharp. I opened the door, and there she was. Petite woman, maybe 5'3", dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing navy blue scrubs. Big smile. "Mr. Crawford, I'm Ashley. So excited to meet you and start helping with your father." She had this warmth about her, this energy. She shook my hand firmly, greeted Karen with the same enthusiasm. When I introduced her to Dad, she knelt down next to his chair, so she was at his eye level. Mr. Robert, it's an honor to meet you. Mrs. Patterson told me you're a Korean War veteran. My grandfather served too. You're heroes. Dad, who usually took a while to warm up to new people, smiled. Well, thank you, young lady. That's kind of you to say. Those first 2 weeks were perfect. Ashley was everything Mrs. Patterson promised, and more. She helped Dad with his exercises, the physical therapy routines the doctor prescribed. She prepared his meals, made sure he took his medications, kept his room tidy. She'd sit and watch old war movies with him, listen to his stories like they were the most fascinating things she'd ever heard. Dad seemed happy, more engaged than he'd been in months. Karen loved Ashley too. She's wonderful, Karen said one evening after Ashley had left for the day. Ashley worked Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., and we handled nights and weekends. Your father is in such good hands. I agreed. I'd even started picking up my old hobbies again, spent afternoons in the garage working on the Mustang, went fishing a couple times. The relief of having professional help was immense. But then, around mid-September, about 3 weeks after Ashley started, I began noticing things. Dad seemed more tired than usual. He'd sleep late, sometimes until 10 or 11, which wasn't like him. He'd always been an early riser, up at dawn his whole life, and when he was awake, he seemed subdued, quieter. He stopped telling his stories. When I'd try to engage him, ask about his day, he'd give short answers. Fine, okay, nothing much. And he was losing weight. Not dramatically, but enough that I noticed it in his face, his hands. I mentioned it to Ashley one afternoon. Mr. Robert's not eating as much as he should, I said. Is he giving you trouble at mealtimes? Ashley smiled that warm smile. Oh, you know how elderly people are. Their appetites decrease. I make sure he eats something at every meal, but I can't force him. I'll keep encouraging him. That made sense, I supposed. But something about it bothered me. Then I started noticing he'd flinch sometimes when Ashley came into the room. Just a slight tensing, a quick flash in his eyes before he'd compose himself. I told myself I was imagining things. Dad liked Ashley. She was good to him. One Saturday morning in late September, I went to help Dad get ready for the day. He was still in bed, which was unusual for a weekend. We usually got him up earlier on weekends, since Ashley wasn't there. Hey, Pop, I said, walking into his room. You feeling okay? Want some breakfast? He looked exhausted, bags under his eyes. Just tired, son. Didn't sleep too well. Let me help you to the bathroom. Then we'll get some food in you. As I helped him sit up and swing his legs over the side of the bed, I saw it. A bruise on his upper arm, dark purple, about the size of my thumb. Actually, several finger-shaped marks, like someone had grabbed him hard. My cop instincts kicked in immediately. That wasn't from a fall or bumping into something. That was from someone gripping his arm with force. Dad, I said, keeping my voice calm. What happened here? He pulled his arm away quickly. Nothing. I bumped it on the walker. You know how clumsy I am these days. But something about the way he said it, the way he wouldn't meet my eyes, set off every alarm bell I had. Dad, are you sure? That looks like someone grabbed you. I'm fine, James, he said, more firmly this time. Don't fuss. Let's just get breakfast. I wanted to push, wanted to question him more, but he looked so tired, so fragile. I let it go. For the moment, I went downstairs where Karen was making pancakes. Karen, did you notice any bruises on Dad? She looked up from the griddle. Bruises? No. Why? He's got marks on his upper arm. Looks like finger marks, like someone grabbed him hard. Karen frowned. He probably doesn't remember how it happened. You know his memory's been spotty. Maybe he bumped it and forgot. Maybe, I said. But I didn't believe it. Over the next week, I started watching more closely. Really watching. And I saw things that made my blood run cold. More bruises appeared. One on Dad's wrist. One on his shoulder. Dad always had an explanation. Always vague. I fell. I hit it on the door. But his explanations didn't match the injuries. A door frame doesn't leave finger-shaped bruises. And his fear of Ashley became more obvious. I'd walk into the living room, and find Ashley standing over Dad while he sat in his chair. She'd be speaking to him in a low voice, too quiet for me to hear. When she'd see me, her face would immediately brighten into that warm smile. Just reminding Mr. Robert about his afternoon pills, she'd say cheerfully, but Dad would be tense, hands gripping the armrests of his chair, knuckles white. One Tuesday afternoon, I decided to come home early from an errand. I'd told Ashley I'd be gone until 3, but I got back at 2. I came in through the garage quietly, and as I walked through the kitchen, I heard Ashley's voice coming from Dad's room. Her tone was completely different. Hard, cold, pathetic old man. You think anyone cares what you say? You're lucky I'm here at all. I froze. My heart started pounding. I moved closer to the hallway, listening. I could make things much worse for you, Ashley continued. So you keep your mouth shut about our little talks. Understand? I couldn't hear Dad's response, but then I heard Ashley's footsteps. I quickly moved back toward the front door, opened and closed it loudly like I'd just come in. Hello, I called out. I'm back. Ashley emerged from the hallway, smiling. Oh, Mr. Crawford, you're back early. Perfect timing. I was just finishing up Mr. Robert's afternoon routine. She gathered her things, said goodbye, left. After her car pulled away, I went straight to Dad's room. He was sitting in his chair, staring at nothing. His hands were shaking. Dad, I said, sitting down next to him. What's going on? Nothing, son. Everything's fine. It's not fine. I heard how Ashley was talking to you. His eyes widened with fear. You can't say anything. Please. She said she'd make it worse. My hands clenched into fists. Make what worse, Dad? What is she doing to you? But he wouldn't say more, just kept shaking his head, tears forming in his eyes. Please, James, just leave it alone. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed next to Karen, my mind racing. Ashley was abusing my father. I knew it. I could feel it in my gut, that same instinct that had served me well in my detective days. But I had no proof. Just some bruises that could theoretically be explained away, and my word against Ashley's that I'd heard her speaking harshly. If I reported this to the agency without proof, they'd investigate, sure. But Ashley would deny everything. She'd claim Dad was confused, that I misheard, that she'd never do such a thing. And Dad was too scared to back me up. She had him terrorized. I needed evidence. Real, undeniable evidence. The next morning, after Karen left for work and Ashley arrived for her shift, I told them I was running to Home Depot. Instead, I drove to a security store across town, a place I knew from my police days. I need hidden cameras, I told the guy working there. A kid, maybe 25 years old, with a tech company t-shirt. Small, high quality, night vision, motion activated. He showed me several options. I picked 2. One for Dad's bedroom, one for the living room where Dad spent most of his time. They were tiny, could be hidden easily, recorded to cloud storage that I could access from my phone. Cost me $400 for both, worth every penny. I installed them that afternoon while Ashley was out grocery shopping with Dad. In his bedroom, I hid one behind a framed photo of him and Mom on their 40th anniversary, angled toward his bed. In the living room, I tucked one into the bookshelf behind some books, pointed toward his usual chair. Unless you knew they were there, you'd never spot them. I activated them both, set them to motion detection, and waited. That night at dinner, I could barely eat. My stomach was in knots. Ashley had seemed perfectly normal all day, cheerful and attentive. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was paranoid. Maybe retirement and stress had made me see threats that weren't there. But then I thought about those bruises, about the fear in Dad's eyes, about what I'd heard. No, I wasn't wrong. The next morning, Thursday, I woke up at 6 a.m. Ashley didn't arrive until 8. I grabbed my phone and opened the security camera app. My hands were shaking. The bedroom camera had been triggered once, at 11:47 p.m. the previous night. Late, way after Dad's usual bedtime of 9 p.m., I put in my earbuds so Karen wouldn't hear, and I hit play. The footage showed Dad's room in that greenish night vision tint. He was in bed, sleeping peacefully. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then, The door opened. Ashley walked in. She was wearing street clothes, jeans, and a hoodie, not her scrubs. She walked over to Dad's bed and just stood there for a moment, looking down at him. Then she reached down and shook his shoulder. Hard. Wake up. Dad startled awake, confused, disoriented. What? Ashley? What are you doing here? I said, wake up. She pulled him upright roughly. We need to talk about your medications. It's the middle of the night, Dad said, his voice weak. Can't this wait until morning? No. Ashley's voice was cold. You've been difficult lately. Not taking your pills when I tell you to. Complaining that they make you tired. They do make me tired, Dad said. I sleep all day. That's the point, you stupid old man. Ashley leaned close to his face. You sleep, you stay out of my way, and I do my job. But if you keep fighting me, I'll make sure you regret it. She grabbed his arm, the same arm I'd seen bruised, and squeezed, hard. Dad winced in pain. Do you understand me? Dad nodded, tears running down his face. Good. Ashley released his arm and reached into her pocket. She pulled out pill bottles. Now take these. All of them. That's too many, Dad protested weakly. Take them, or I'll force them down your throat. I watched, frozen in horror, as Dad took the pills with shaking hands. Ashley stood over him, making sure he swallowed each one. Then she did something that made my blood boil. She pulled out her phone, opened what looked like a banking app, and showed Dad the screen. See this? This is your bank account, the one you gave me access to so I could help pay your bills. You have $47,000 in savings. I've already transferred $8,000 to my account over the past 3 weeks. Small amounts, nothing anyone would notice. By the time your son figures it out, I'll have drained it all, and there's nothing you can do about it. Dad's face crumpled. Please don't. That's all I have. Should have thought about that before you were born into a generation with actual money. Ashley patted his cheek mockingly. Now go to sleep, and remember, if you say one word to James, I'll tell him you're showing signs of dementia, that you're confused, that you gave me that money willingly because you trust me. Who do you think he'll believe? His sweet, caring nurse? Or his elderly father with memory problems? She left the room. On the video, I watched Dad curl up under his blankets, sobbing quietly. The video ended. I sat there in my home office, staring at my phone, unable to breathe. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. I'd just watched it with my own eyes. Ashley wasn't just abusing my father. She was drugging him, stealing from him, and terrorizing him into silence. I checked the living room camera. It had captured footage from yesterday afternoon when I'd been out. Ashley standing over Dad in his chair, berating him for spilling his juice, calling him worthless, pinching his arm hard enough to make him cry out. I had everything. Video evidence, audio, clear as day. I wanted to drive to her house right now but no. I was a cop for 35 years. I knew how to handle this the right way. I saved all the footage to multiple locations, cloud storage, external drive, and my laptop. Then I opened my laptop and did something I should have done 3 weeks ago. I ran a background check on Ashley Martinez. What I found made me sick. Ashley Martinez wasn't even her real name. Her real name was Ashley Chen. She'd changed it legally 2 years ago. And she had a record. Not much. Nothing that would show up on a basic employment check. But deeper digging revealed. 2019. Arrested for theft from an elderly client in Houston. Charges dropped when the victim died before trial. 2021. Civil lawsuit from a family in Dallas claiming she'd stolen jewelry and cash while working as their father's caregiver. Settled out of court. 2022. Fired from a nursing home in San Antonio after multiple complaints from families. No criminal charges, but internal investigation found evidence of verbal abuse. She was a professional predator. She targeted elderly people, gained their trust, isolated them, abused them, and robbed them. And somehow, she kept slipping through the cracks, moving to new cities, changing her name, finding new victims. My father was just her latest mark. I made my decision. I called Dad's doctor first, Dr. Reynolds, explained everything, asked him if he could see Dad today for an emergency appointment. He agreed immediately. Then I woke up Karen. Showed her everything. The videos, the background check, the bank transfers. She went pale. Oh my God. Oh my God. James, how did we not see this? She's a pro, I said. She's done this before, but she's not getting away with it this time. At 7:30 a.m., I went to Dad's room. He was still sleeping, probably from whatever Ashley had forced him to take. I gently woke him up. Dad, it's okay. You're safe. I know everything. I have proof. We're going to stop her. He looked at me, confused at first, then terrified. James, you can't. She won't do anything. I'm a cop, remember? I know how to handle people like her. But I need you to come with me to see Dr. Reynolds. We need to document what she's done to you. Can you do that? For the first time in weeks, I saw hope in his eyes. You believe me? I've always believed you, Dad. I just needed proof. And now I have it. Let's get you cleaned up and out of here before she arrives. We had Dad dressed and in the car by 7:50, 10 minutes before Ashley was due. I left a note on the door. Family emergency. Dad won't need care today. We'll call later. At Dr. Reynolds' office, we showed him everything. He examined Dad thoroughly, documented every bruise, every mark. He took photographs. He drew blood to test for what medications Ashley had been giving him. Mr. Crawford, Dr. Reynolds said to me afterward, this is criminal elder abuse. I'm a mandatory reporter. I have to contact Adult Protective Services and the police. I know, I said. I want you to. But I'm also calling my old partner from the fraud division. This isn't just abuse. It's theft, extortion, everything. I called Detective Sarah Kim, who I'd worked with for 15 years before retiring. Told her everything. She arrived at the doctor's office within 30 minutes with another detective. They watched the videos. They reviewed the bank records I'd pulled showing the transfers. They looked at Dad's injuries. They pulled up Ashley's real background. James, Sarah said, her face grim. We're going to your house right now to arrest her. But I need you and your father to come to the station to give formal statements. Are you ready for that? I looked at Dad. He looked scared but determined. Yes, he said. I'm ready. The detectives went to my house first. I'd given them my key. They waited for Ashley to arrive at 8 a.m. sharp, and when she walked in, they arrested her on the spot. Later, Sarah told me what happened. Ashley denied everything at first. Claimed she'd never been to our house at night, that the videos must be faked, that Dad was confused and making things up. But when they showed her the bank records, the background check showing her real identity, her face went white. They charged her with elder abuse, theft, fraud, exploitation of a vulnerable adult, and unlawful administration of medication. They held her on $100,000 bail. Meanwhile, Dad and I spent hours at the police station giving statements. Dad was brave. He told them everything about the abuse, the threats, the forced medications, the fear, about how she'd come to the house at night, how she'd shown him his bank account on her phone while she bragged about stealing from him. By the time we finished, it was evening. Sarah drove us home. The house felt different without Ashley's presence. Lighter, safer. I made Dad some dinner, real dinner, not whatever Ashley had been giving him. We sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time in weeks, Dad ate a full meal. Thank you, son, he said quietly. Thank you for seeing what was happening, for believing me, for saving me. I reached across the table and took his hand. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner, Dad. I'm sorry I let that woman into our home. You didn't know, Dad said. She fooled everyone, even me at first. The legal process was swift. The DA's office took the case seriously. Ashley, or Ashley Chen, had finally pushed her luck too far. With video evidence, medical evidence, financial records, and Dad's testimony, plus her criminal history, the case was airtight. Her lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal. The DA refused. This was going to trial. The trial happened 4 months later in January. The prosecuting attorney, a sharp woman named Rebecca Stone, presented everything methodically. The videos played in the courtroom, showing Ashley abusing my father, showing her bragging about stealing his money. The courtroom was silent, except for the sound of my father crying on that recording. Medical experts testified about the bruises, about the medications found in Dad's system. Forensic accountants showed the money trail. I testified about what I'd witnessed, about the background check. Dad testified, frail but determined, and told the jury exactly what Ashley had done to him. Ashley's defense tried to claim Dad was unreliable due to his age and memory issues. They tried to suggest I'd manipulated the evidence, but the jury saw through it. They deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced Ashley to 8 years in prison. She also had to pay full restitution of the $8,000 she'd stolen, plus damages. She'd never be allowed to work in healthcare or with vulnerable populations again. She'd have a felony record that would follow her forever. As they led her out of the courtroom in handcuffs, she looked at me. No more warm smile, just cold hatred. I didn't care. My father was safe. Justice was served. Dad lived with us for another 6 months after the trial. During that time, we found him a new caregiver through a different agency, one with stricter vetting processes. Her name was Maria, a wonderful woman in her 50s who actually cared about her clients. Dad thrived under her care. His physical injuries healed. The emotional trauma took longer, but with therapy and time, he started smiling again, started telling his stories. But his health continued to decline. That stroke had done more damage than we initially thought. By July, he needed round-the-clock medical care that we couldn't provide at home. We found an excellent assisted living facility here in Austin, one that specializes in veterans. The staff there are incredible. I visit him every day. Some days he knows who I am. Some days he calls me by my uncle's name. But he's safe. He's cared for. He's never afraid. I'm 65 now. Karen and I are doing well. We've learned to vet caregivers carefully, to trust our instincts, to never ignore warning signs. We've also become advocates for elder abuse awareness. We speak at community centers, at senior living facilities, anywhere they'll have us. Ashley Chen got out on parole last year after serving 5 years. I don't know where she is now, and I don't care. There's a restraining order keeping her away from Dad and our family, and her record means she'll never work in care again. But here's what I want you to understand. People like Ashley are out there, predators who specifically target the elderly, the vulnerable, the people who can't fight back. They're charming, professional, they come with references and warm smiles. They count on you trusting them. They count on their victims being too scared or confused to speak up. If you have an elderly loved one who needs care, whether at home or in a facility, please be vigilant. Look for warning signs, unexplained bruises, sudden changes in behavior, fear of certain caregivers, weight loss, withdrawal, financial irregularities. Don't ignore your gut. If something feels wrong, investigate. You don't need to be a retired cop to do this. Document everything. Take photos. Check bank accounts. Install cameras. Talk to doctors. Build evidence. And please, run real background checks on anyone who comes into your home to care for your loved ones. Not just the basic checks the agencies do. Dig deeper. It might cost a couple $100s, but it could save your family tens of thousands and spare your loved one months or years of abuse. My father is safe now because I trusted my instincts. Because I didn't let Ashley's pleasant demeanor blind me to what was happening. Because I took action. If you're in a situation like mine, if you suspect a caregiver is abusing someone you love, act now. Call Adult Protective Services. Call the police. Call a lawyer. Don't wait. Don't hope it will get better. It won't. And if you're watching this because you are the one being abused, please know this. What's happening to you is not your fault. You are not a burden. You deserve safety and dignity and respect. There are people who will help you if you can find the courage to tell someone. Tell your doctor. Tell a family member. Tell anyone who will listen. Elder abuse thrives in silence and shame. Don't let it stay hidden. Speak up. Shine a light into that darkness. Be brave. To everyone who made it through this whole story, thank you for listening. Please share this if you think it might help someone. talk about elder abuse. Be the person who pays attention, who asks questions, who protects those who can't protect themselves. Because in the end, that's what family is about. Not just blood or marriage certificates, but standing up for the people who need you most. Being brave enough to see the truth, even when it's painful. Taking action even when it's hard. My father is safe, that's all that matters. And I'd do it all again in a heartbeat.